verse which is from ancient Indian Vedic literature says, lead us from untruth to truth, lead us from darkness to light, lead us from death to immortality. Om, peace, peace, peace. This is from Brihadaranyaka Upanishad, one of the Vedic texts, ancient Vedic texts. I thought this is the best way to begin, by chanting this peace mantra, because some people have an understanding of Vedic literature, which is ancient Indian one, to be a religious text. So if we have to look at how religious they are, or what is it that lies beyond the religion that we find in ancient Indian tradition, the best way is to open it, read a particular verse, and try to understand what it is trying to inform us. And if we make such kind of an attempt, we would be astonished to find that it's not religious in the sense that we understand religion now. It goes much beyond that. Just now I have recited this, which says, lead all of us from untruth to truth. That's a continuous journey, right? Yes. That's a civilizational journey. And at no point of time you can say that, no, I'm not moving from untruth to truth. My journey is not towards truth. Whether you are a scientist or a humanist or something else, all of us are continuously making this journey of moving from or moving towards truth. Similarly, lead all of us from darkness to light. Now, some people may think that, no, I am not in darkness now, I am already in light. So why should it be a movement towards light, right? But if you understand, even the present kind of knowledge system that is moving forward is always a movement towards unknown. So we try to move from known to the unknown. Science is trying to move from known to the unknown. Religion tries to take you from known to unknown. You pick up any discipline, I can explain it. Right? So it's a continuous journey from known to the unknown that happens, and known to the unknown is understood to be darkness to light. Unfortunately, we think that being in whatever light that we are is the everything, and we think, no, I cannot face the unknown. One of the major human concerns of the present civilization is facing the unknown. And the kind of anxiety that we build in facing the unknown, whether it is your unknown neighbor or it is the kind of relationship that you want to enter with, or going to an unknown place, or it's like some people think of devils, etc., right? So these are all unknown things that scare us so much, but we should understand that even for sometimes death scares us so much because it's unknown, right? Your relationship, entering into relationship scares you because it's unknown. You don't know what's going to happen next. So this, though we are continuously making a journey from known to the unknown, somehow we are made to understand that this journey from known to the unknown is scary, which is actually not. So that's what I would be addressing in the course of the lectures that I have scheduled so far. Let me begin this way by expressing my sincere gratitude to Indian High Commission for hosting this series of lectures, especially to Mr. Masakui Rungsung, the Indian High Commissioner. We all know the kind of vibrant work that he is doing, and as a part of it, when I proposed this series of lectures, he said, don't do anywhere else, do it here in Indian High Commission. So he was very generous in offering this space, so I express my sincere gratitude to him and to the colleagues in Indian High Commission who have made this arrangement for all of us. And my sincere thanks to all of you. It's such a wonderful joy to see all of you sparing your time on Sundays, Sunday evening. It's party time, but you chose not to go for a party and come for a philosophy lecture. That's right. Really, like, yeah, I feel very blessed by your presence here. I would like to begin it this way, if all of you agree to this. Okay. How would it be if we do a 5-minute meditation here and then proceed further? Is that okay? Sure. Okay. So then, please be with yourself and unburden yourself. If you have anything with you, drop them on the floor. Because the process of meditation is a journey of unburdening oneself. If you are not ready to unburden yourself, then you are not you are not open for any kind of meditation or relieving yourself. Yeah, we just thanked the Indian High Commissioner, and he has come. Thank you, sir, for hosting this place. Thank you so much for that. So please unburden yourself and then sit comfortably in whichever position that you feel comfortable. Close your eyes. You can even open your eyes, but eyes are the most sensitive sense organ which tries to attract and dump things on your head. So that's why it's better if you close your eyes. I will chant Om 3 times and then 5 minutes of meditation. Okay? Take a deep breath and you can also join me. Second time. Once again. Keep your eyes closed. Focus your mind on one of the interesting sense organs, your ear, your sensation of sound. Just try to be attentive to whatever is coming through your ear. Since you have stopped other sense organs, you open your ear and let the sound, whatever that you hear, come in. Don't get distracted. Listen to the sounds. Sounds which are continuous around you. Focus your mind completely on the sounds that are far away, distant ones. Try to listen to them. Your mind will try to run away, but bring it back to your sensation of hearing, listening, and focus it on the sounds that are far away. Don't let your mind get distracted. Focus it completely on what you hear. Now slowly focus your mind on the silence that is around you. See whether you can listen to the silence. Listen to the silence. Slowly open your eyes whenever you feel comfortable. See, basically what I try to do is, one of the most important aspects of you as an individual, I as an individual, is your sense organs. They are the ones which try to give you information, whether it is with regard to science, technology, or some global affairs that are happening elsewhere. Every information comes through your sense organs. You take care of your body so much. Do you take care of your sense organs anytime? Only going to the doctor is not taking care of your senses, right? You are also equipped to take care of your senses. Have you ever tried to do that? So I just try to give a glimpse of how to take care of your senses. Focusing on your ear, like focusing on sensation of sound, will help you to listen to me in a better way. It also helps you in stopping other sense organs for a while. I don't know how much time you can do that, but it would be good if you can do that, right? So in a way, I wanted to capture your mind. That's how I try to do this. And we do this because when we talk about taking care of the mind, one of the important aspects, as I said, is taking care of your senses. And this is what is called mindfulness meditation. Being mindful of each one of your senses is required so that your mind will be under your control. And most of the times we fail in our reason, fail in our emotions, and react without responding to situations only because we don't have control over our mind. So that's where this mindfulness meditation will help. But of course, it's a long process. I only gave you a glimpse of 5 minutes. You know, you had shut your eyes only for 5 minutes, not more than that. So even that 5 minutes, even such a short one will help you much. We all speak different languages. When I say this, I'm not saying that I speak my own native Indian language and you speak some other language. Even if we speak English, we speak different languages. Okay, that's what I want you to know, because the kind of vocabulary that I would be using and the way you receive it would be maybe different. So please be aware of the dissonance that may happen with regard to this speaking of different languages, right? That's number one. Number two is, I'm going to speak about Indian tradition, classical Indian tradition. And whenever we speak about classical Indian tradition, which is endowed in a rich classical Indian language called Sanskrit, there is always more than 50% of distortion. Okay, so I'm speaking, I want you to understand that there is a lot of distortion that happens when we speak about Indian tradition in English. So be aware of that. and allow me to go further on that. This brief session that we have today, you know that there are 5 lectures that I'm going to give, and this is the first one. This is an introductory one where I would be dealing with 4 things. One is I'll try to give you a brief about the other 4 lectures that would follow. And also I would address about the misunderstandings about philosophy that we have among us, within us. And the third one that I would address is it's like I would try to provide you a brief insight into what we call Indian history, Indian literature and tradition. So these are the 3 things that I am aiming in this particular lecture today. As I said, I'm here for past 12 months. I'm here, sorry, I didn't introduce myself. I always commit this mistake. My name is Balaganpathi. I teach philosophy at the University of Delhi in India. I am deputed by Indian Council of Cultural Relations to teach philosophy at University of West Indies. So that's why I am holding a chair of Indology and Gandhian Studies at University of West Indies. Yeah, I'm here for past 12 months, that's what I said, right? Like, in these 12 months, I was talking to different people. Through my eye contact, I understand that I met almost all of you, except 4 or 5, otherwise, I met most of you, and I had interactions with you all. So, when I was talking about philosophy, especially Indian philosophy, many people showed interest. Many people told me before I came here that Jamaicans may not be interested in philosophy, they are interested in more worldly things, etc. But I understood that assumption was proved to be utterly wrong. So I'm so happy that it was proved wrong, right? So when I was talking to the people, they said that we are interested in joining the courses that I'm teaching at University of West Indies on philosophy. But somehow there is, I did not find a way through which I can make friends come there and attend to the classes. So that's how I thought I should give a series of lectures introducing Indian tradition, Indian philosophy and Indian history. So that's the prelude to this series that I have planned. And though I am interested in introducing Indian philosophy or Indian tradition, I am not really interested in introducing it as a classroom lecture mode kind of one. So how do we make it different from regular kind of one and then try to make it useful to the people? So that's what made me look at the misunderstandings that we have with regard to philosophy. People think that philosophy is not useful to human life. At least to my immediate concerns, it's not going to be useful. This is what people think, right? And people also think that it is completely a religion. Right? It is oriented towards religion, so that's not, some people think that that's not my cup of tea. Or I am into religion, so I need not bother about philosophy. The third misunderstanding that we have is philosophy at the most talks about other world. So I am indulged in this world, so why should I care about the other world, something that talks about other world? In fact, technology is dealing with this world, so I should know about technology rather than doing about philosophy, right? So these are the 3 major misunderstandings that we find with regard to philosophy in the world. So I thought I should address them and try to reach out to Indian philosophy and see what are the common everyday concerns that we have and how do we deal with them, whether philosophy has any insights, especially Indian philosophy has any insights for us so that we can deal with our everyday life concerns in a better way. That was the prelude which prompted me to plan for this series of lectures. So that's how I have chosen a common everyday concern. The concerns that I have chosen are suffering. We all know we all suffer in one way or the other. Is there anybody who hasn't suffered so far in their life? They can raise their hands. We'll felicitate and facilitate them. Right? We all suffer, right? But we don't know why we suffer. And some of us know why we suffer, but we don't probe it further. So that I took up to be the first theme of the second lecture. And the other theme that I have chosen is, how do I improve myself? No, whether whatever you are, no, whoever you are at whatever stage you are in your life, we try to improve ourselves, right? And are there any resources that we find? Where do we get? See, our schools don't teach us. Do they teach us how to improve ourselves or how to deal with suffering? Why is it that every day we suffer, but we know the subject in our curriculum which deals with that? Is it not strange? Right? So that's what philosophy does. But you think that philosophy is not related to my life, right? So that's what has prompted me to look into that particular aspect. And another interesting concern is self-knowledge. We think that I don't know, I don't have to know myself. Have we ever thought that, yeah, I should also make an attempt to know myself? We as human beings are so engrossed with the world around us that we are always concerned about knowing the other, something that is outside me. But is it not important for me to know myself so that I can balance myself lead myself in a better way? If I am only concerned about the other, then how do I take care of myself? And that's where we have been working on a concept called philosophical health. Okay, health is not just biological health. Don't misunderstand me. There may be medical practitioners and doctors here. I see Dr. Garg here, and probably there are many other friends. But health is not just biological health, my friends. Please try to understand that health is much deeper, much broader than mere biological health. And where do you locate for the solutions that you have within you that are other than biological? You have to go to philosophy. Otherwise, you would be landing up in the hands of some of the fake gurus and babas, and then you will be losing yourself or losing something, everything, right? So that's where philosophy and spirituality are very important. Spirituality, don't reduce it to our narrow understanding of it. Okay, so that's where I thought I should address these issues in the following lectures. And what will happen if I address these issues? That's the major concern. If I address these issues, I believe we would be indirectly and directly addressing the concerns that I have when I spoke to many people expressed in terms of anger, in terms of stress, in terms of anxiety, in terms of depression that many people talk about. I believe once we start looking at self-knowledge, self-improvement, and then how do I manage suffering, once you address these core issues of each one of us, they will really help us in managing our stress, anxiety, and depression. I'm not saying they will just disappear, okay? That's not what I mean. But once you know how to take care of yourself, self-care we talk about, but we don't know. We think that self-care is going to parlor, right? Self-care is not going to parlor. It's much deeper than that. So it's required that we should have a look at that. At least we should have a knowledge of that so that we can opt for it. See, when you don't know that it is one of the options that you have, you will never go for it, right? That's so. When we talk about meditation, people think that, oh, that's nonsense. That's something that happens for those people who sit together. And no, all of us need to take care of our mind. We take care of our body so much. We take care of we are worried about the shape of the body, color of the body, smell of the body, right? What about your mind? I often say this for fun. Let me say this here as well. We eat 3 times, and we have a washroom that we construct in our house, which we call glamour room, right? We make it so profound, and you feed your body only 3 times, but you feed your mind every minute. How many times? I don't know. So you feed your mind so many times, and where is your washroom for mind? That's nonsense, right? Think about it. Probably you should think, right? Anyway, let me not get into that now. But I would be talking about that as well in these lectures. So I thought introducing some of the philosophical concepts, especially from Indian tradition, because I am acquainted with Indian tradition. It's not that you can also look at your own traditions, cultural traditions into which you are, and look at the answers for the everyday problems. Since I am acquainted with Indian philosophy and Indian tradition, I thought let me bring out something from there and offer it to you. So it's only an experiment that I'm doing. You can also do with your own cultures and traditions. So this is how I'm trying to stress the centrality of philosophy in our lives, which would be helpful to us, I believe. As I said, there is a misunderstanding that exists with regard to philosophy, thinking that it is only a religion or otherworldly, or it has nothing to do with my life. But you know, when you have to look at yourself, you can understand yourself to be at least a combination of three things: what you think, what you speak, and what you act. Right? This is what is stated in Indian tradition, manasa vacha karmana, which means what you think is important to you, and what you speak is also important to you, and how you act in the world is also fundamental to you, right? But unfortunately, we think that how I act is the only important thing, and I need not care about what I speak. Okay? Even what I speak is not in consonance with what I do, I think that's fine, right? That's how I tell my friend that you should not be doing that, you should not be corrupt, but when it comes to me, I will be corrupt, right? I think that that's okay. See, there is no connection between what I speak and what I do actually, right? And the third one is thinking. I think something, I speak something else, and then I do. We all are part of that, right? You know, we talk about honesty, right? The English word honesty. What is the meaning of it? Can anybody give me a meaning of it? Honesty? I'll give you an interesting response to that from Indian tradition. Indian tradition says honesty means what you think, what you speak, and what you act, how you act. These three things should be in consonance with each other. It's such a simple definition, right? Honesty and truthfulness is not for the sake of other, right? And you don't try to be honest for the sake of the other. You have to be honest for the sake of your own self. And how do you maintain that? What you think, what you speak, and what you act must be in consonance, right? Don't try to think something and speak something else for others, because when you speak, you are speaking for others, and when you act, you are acting in a different way, and that creates a kind of dissonance, and that's what leads to many of the psychological concerns that we talk about. And also, that's the one which actually destroys your relationships. Right? So these are basically fundamental things which we somehow lost in the process of modernizing ourselves or making ourselves technologically vibrant. Somehow these facts, these insights that are given to us in our tradition, we have lost track of them. And it is required that we should revisit them, so that, not for the sake of anybody else, it is only for your own sake. So that's where when people say, what is philosophy? Philosophy, when I act in the world, obviously all my actions are to be governed by at least two kinds of principles. One is the principle of the state, governance. There is another principle as well, right? Ethics. And major concern of philosophy is ethics, right? So, is it away from your life? No. When you speak, often we think that, we hear this logic, right? Discipline called logic, and we think that logic is only mathematical logic. But logic is not mathematical logic. When you speak, unless some logic working within you, you cannot speak. Right? Language, linguistic ability of the individual, which tries to join your thought with word, choosing an appropriate word at an appropriate time, is the logic that operates within you. which is fundamental to the human being. And that's what philosophy deals with. Now you tell me, philosophy is far away from you or within you? And the third important thing is thought, we said. When you act, when you do something, for example, if I give you this, oh, you're ready to take it? you can give it to me, back to me later. But imagine that I'm giving a religious symbol in which you believe. Will you take it in the same way, or will there be any change in the way you receive it?
Yes, there would be a change.
There would be a change, right? So what I mean to say is, all our actions are based on belief system that operates within us, within our minds. Whatever you do, okay, it is connected to some belief system that operates within you. And sometimes some people tend to say that science is against the beliefs, etc. But science is also grounded strongly in belief system, okay? Don't think that science is beyond belief system. Science is also rooted in belief system. I can explain that in a lecture. So, but otherwise, belief system is the one which makes you do whatever that you are doing. If that is the case, where is this belief system existent? It exists in your mind in the form of creating a worldview. All of us have a worldview that operates within us, where I'm seeing the world here, but actually there is a world here which has already placed each one of you, each one of the things here in my mind, right? So starting from your mother or your friends, etc., everybody is placed in your mind, and every object is also placed in your worldview, right? So this belief system and the worldview are the ones which influence what you speak and what you do in your life. And philosophy deals with them. When somebody says, I'm doing something, but I'm not able to do it properly, philosophy asks you whether your belief, what is your belief system? Let's go back to your fundamental assumptions and see what you believe and what you're doing are in consonance. If they are not in consonance, then you have to tune them. Otherwise, you will not be able to succeed in that endeavor. So that's where basically philosophy is something that operates within you and makes you do whatever that you're doing. For instance, I can give you this example, like we are all biological beings, right? That's hardware. And you're also psychological beings, so all of us are psychological beings. Consider that to be software. But hardware and software cannot make this work. There should be an operating system which makes both of them connected and work, right? And philosophy works like that operating system within you. So that's how philosophy is so fundamental to human living. Enough of advocating my canvassing and advertising my discipline, right? But there is another interesting aspect as well that we should know with regard to philosophy. That is, all the disciplines that we have, that we teach in the universities and colleges and schools, all of them talk about knowledge of something. So for example, biology talks about knowledge of biological organism, and computer science talks about knowledge of computers related things, right? And mathematics talks about knowledge of the numbers and then abstract concepts and numbers that operate. But none of the disciplines that we have talk about what knowledge itself is, right? We assume that there is now something called knowledge. What is it? Is it a banana, or is it, what is it, right? That nobody talks about that. And philosophy is the discipline that addresses this particular issue of what is knowledge, how do you acquire it, and how do you make it work, and how do you make knowledge really useful to your life. So philosophy is the discipline that operates at that fundamental basic level. That's why in Indian tradition, philosophy is called Tattva Shastra. Tattva is fundamental. Tattva means fundamental. Okay? It's also called Darshana. Darshana is the way you see the world. Right? So basically, that's how, if you look at, most of you are probably highly qualified people. I know that I'm nothing here in front of you, but still, let me dare to say this. We talk about PhD, right? Highest degree in any field is called PhD, and the PhD is Doctor of Philosophy, right? Though you do PhD in computer science, you don't get Doctor of Computer Science. You get Doctor of Philosophy in Computer Science, and you get Doctor of Philosophy in Botany, Biology, whatever. Right? Why is it so? Because that's the basic fundamental background of all the things that you talk about. So that's the importance of philosophy in our lives. And philosophy is also understood as love of wisdom, etc. Etymologically, it is considered to be love of wisdom. For instance, there is a baby, a child. What does the baby do? Continuously tries to know, right? Does it stop any time knowing? But we stop ourselves from knowing. Can you stop yourself from knowing? Human beings are continuously endeavor to know things around them. We are all knowing beings, fundamentally knowing beings. You cannot stop yourself from knowing, right? Continuously you try to build on what you have known and what the unknown is getting introduced to you. So that's the kind of endeavor that philosophy tries to deal with. So that's how any attempt to know something is considered to be an attempt of philosophizing. So we all indulge in philosophizing, activity of philosophizing without knowing it. So that's where I say, though most of the people think that philosophy is far away from them, in fact, it is operating within us, which is very important for us to know. Now the third thing that I have to move to is, since I have spoken about the importance of philosophy, I should go to the Indian tradition. There is another important aspect. I'm just checking. Oh, sorry. I'm trying to check the time because I know I may be crossing my time limits. Since it's an introductory one, you should all give me 15 minutes grace time, okay, so that I can finish it. There is just one more aspect of philosophy that I want to stress so that I can stop there and move to Indian tradition. That's like, as human beings, at the core of ourselves, we are human beings, right? We may be doctors and teachers or students, otherwise doing a lot of other things, but at the core, we are all human beings. That's what unites us all and brings us all together. So if that is the case, at the core of us, what is it that we want? If somebody asks you, like, what is it that you want? You would say some good employment or whatever, money, a lot of money, power. But basically, at the core of it, what is it that we want is to be healthy. Will there be any disputes on that? And to be happy, will there be any disputes on that? All of us want that, right? Starting from a kid to an elderly person. And to be peaceful, right? So if all of us commonly desire health, happiness, and peace, then the question is, do we know what is happiness? Do we know what is health? Health is not just taking pills and trying to maintain our own statistical account of whatever chemicals that you have in the body, right? that's not just that cannot be the health, or you cannot reduce health to that. And what is being at peace? So the question here is fundamental in the sense that though all of us need and desire these, we have no idea as to how do we understand them. And even the very popular political scientists argue that the fundamental concern of human civilizations, starting from ancient times, is peaceful coexistence, where we are continuously failing. Continuously failing, right? Is it not very paradoxical that we know, but still we don't get it? Why is it so? Fundamentally, at the core, we don't realize that we are human, and we don't realize the meaning of what is being happy and what is being peaceful and what is being healthy. And we are all get carried away by these concepts that are dumped on us or that are provided in the air. So philosophy basically tries to make you understand it's not what is happiness that you should ask, rather you should ask what is happiness for me. How do I understand happiness? How do I understand happiness? So getting into such kind of a discourse within the self is important, and that's what helps you in whatever concerns that I have mentioned earlier. So that's what I would be doing in the subsequent 4 lectures. So that's where we reduce being happy and being healthy and being peaceful to being wealthy and being powerful and being enjoyable. Right? You think that being healthy is having a lot of money. Being happy is like when I enjoy it, whatever. And being peaceful is like when I have power. Right? So this is how we tend to translate these fundamental core concerns of the self into the social mode. And we think that these are the ones that give us those. Whereas there is a disparity between them that we have to understand. And we think that getting into a big profession or earning a lot of money would be giving these things. But actually, it never gives those things, right? So how do we understand that is also a concern of self-knowledge and self-improvement, and also how to manage suffering. So that's where I would be leading to in subsequent lectures. Anyway, enough of this. Let me come back to, as I said, my major concern is to look at Indian tradition. Jamaica and India are, in the past, they were colonies, and in fact colonized by Britishers, and of course other colonizers were also there. There is an interesting story that I want to narrate to you about India's past. Often we ask this question like, when does the history of India start? Any answers to that? India's history?
Long before the British arrived.
British were only in 16th and 17th centuries. So they say it at least dates back to 5, yeah. Yeah, they say it dates back to 5000 BC. Okay, so that's the officially colonizers accepted narrative. But the people of India believe that it dates back to at least 20,000 years before Christ. Okay, that's how it is understood. But anyway, let's not get into that. That's not our concern. But if we look at India's history, now people would say India's history started with British colonization or colonizers capturing the India. Right? Same thing happened with many of the colonies in Caribbean as well as in Latin America, Africa. Their past was buried and destroyed by the colonizers. Okay, and interestingly, there is a difference between India and other colonized, post-colonial or colonized countries. When it comes to other countries, for instance, Latin America or Africa, their histories were completely demolished, and they don't have their history before they were colonized. But when it comes to India, even now, you would find 5,000 or probably more than 5,000 years tradition and the contemporary technological revolution simultaneously living together. Okay, so what I mean to say is this classical Indian tradition, which is said to be so ancient, still continues to live even today in some pockets in India, right? So this is what made me to look at how is this history of India understood. So when British came to India, you know that British were basically, the colonizers were basically in the, they were trying to, they were on a civilization mission everywhere. No? Colonization is basically I am colonizing you because I am civilized and you are not civilized, and I am on a civilizing mission. So that's how they have reached to many of the colonies, and that's what they made people to understand and believe. Even with regard to India, same thing happened, and they found that people are, you will find books like Snakes and Serpents, Land of Snakes and Serpents, kind of remarks that you find with regard to India. But when they came to India and went deep into the country, there was an astonishing thing that they found. They found rich literature, Sanskrit literature, which seems to be more fundamental and more powerful than the language that they know. So it was like a shock. I came to civilize you, but I found that you have a rich treasure, not just money, okay, literature. See, money can be like, money is something that is given. You can always take it out from the earth. But I mean gold, etc. But when it comes to literature, unless it has thousands of years of effort, literature will not be so strong and powerful, right? Literature development requires longer time than any other material things to come into existence. So that's where there is a first shock that British, when they came to India, had to face. Guess what they did? They tried to hijack the history. How do you hijack the history of a country? By creating a narrative. And what kind of narrative can be created? They said there is some tribe called Aryans who have migrated from Middle East. They came to India and they have brought Sanskrit to India. Okay? So there is a theory called Aryan immigration theory, which tries to establish that the literature, rich treasure of literature that is found in India is not by Indians themselves, it is by people who have migrated to India. So that's how the whole history and the whole civilization was hijacked with one theory, right? And in order to support that, I don't know how many of you are aware of this comparative studies that have evolved during 17th, 18th centuries in the field of knowledge, compared to religion, compared to psychology, compared to linguistics. All these disciplines evolved to support that theory initially. They said, no, see, I can explain you. Any language will have core words, and you look at these core words and see the similarities between the languages. On the basis of that, I can construct a linguistic theory of linguistic language families, and on the basis of language families, I can prove you that your language is my language, connected to my language, and since your language is connected to my language, your language is borrowed from my language. The migrants of my language have come to your land. So this is the kind of theory that was wonderfully developed, and see, now many people, many intellectuals believe in this theory and continue and start fighting on that. But there is another twist, there is a twist to that story, okay? The story goes further. They successfully hijacked Sanskrit civilization, and then in I believe 40s, I believe 1940s, they found there was an archaeological excavation that happened, which unearthed more profound civilization, which could be dated even back to Sanskrit civilization, Vedic civilization, which is called, this is what, Harappan civilization, Indus Valley and Harappan civilization, which even dates back to Vedic civilization. Now it's like how to hijack that, right? See, they have successfully hijacked the Sanskrit tradition, at least to some extent. Now they found that there is another civilization which was existent even before that, which was so rich, so great, so profound, in the sense that they have even used decimal system in their literature. Decimal system, okay? So even if you date back Vedic tradition to 5000 years BCE, and this is even before that, and that's a very well-established kind of system that you find. This is the kind of town planning that they found, okay? This is all pre-Vedic, I'm telling you, okay? It could be somewhere around 10,000 to 5,000 BC. And this is the kind of picture that they found, pottery, which means pottery was also existent then. And then this is an interesting picture. I want all of you to have a look at it. This is Proto-Dravidian, Proto-Harappan kind of Siddha. We talk about Siddha, right? Siddhas. I mean Shiva's prototype in a way. In Indian religious pantheon, we have Trinity: Shiva, Brahma, Vishnu, and Maheshwara. Brahma is the one who makes the evolution come into existence, and Vishnu is the one who sustains it, and Shiva is the one who destroys it. And we find a symbol of Shiva in its prototypical depiction in this particular seed that we find in Harappan civilization, Indus Valley Siddha. Only unfortunate thing is, this is their language, which is still not deciphered. Okay, the language which was used by these Harappans in this Valley script is still not deciphered, and that's the big gap that we find. That's why we are not able to access much of their knowledge that they have exhibited in literature, except the material things that they find, town planning, etc. The actual literature, knowledge part is not being able to accessed by the people. So that's where we are lagging. So that's another big problem, right? As I said, the second encounter, second difficulty that the colonizers found with regard to India is now how to deal with this Dravidian Indus Valley civilization. They created something called Aryans and Dravidians. They said Dravidians were the people who lived there, and they are also not Indians. They came from some other place. So this kind of theory went on for a long time. Okay, Dravidian linguistics is a very popular discipline that you find these days. You know? So, but what I'm trying to say is the ancientness of this tradition that you find dates back. Nobody knows. Okay, there are still academic fights that are still going on, but we don't know when they would end. Coming to literature, as I said, since Indus script is not deciphered, we don't have any access to the literature there. But when it comes to Vedas, we have the first ancient texts are called Vedas, and we have epics that we talk about in Indian tradition, which are Ramayana and Mahabharata. Ramayana depicting the story of a king called Rama, which tries to provide or like inculcate virtues of family life and how individual should cultivate himself. And in fact, happy Father's Day to all the fathers here, because Ramayana also depicts the virtue of being a good son, following the footsteps or the words of the father, right? And Mahabharata, which is more close to the contemporary times in the sense that it tries to explain the intricate problems of the human relations and how do we address them. So you find all sorts of things in Mahabharata, whereas in Ramayana you find only the truth and truthfulness, okay? And we also have Puranas in the sense that they are myths, legends, and other traditional lore that we find in the name of Puranas. We can go for hours together on lecturing these things, so I'm not really trying to go into them, but I will only talk about this 14 books of knowledge that we refer to in Indian tradition. As I said, the first one is Vedas that we talk in Indian tradition, which are the earliest texts of Indian tradition, which are Rig Veda, Yajurveda, Samaveda, and Atharva Veda. Okay, these are the 4 Vedas that we have. And Veda basically with, Veda comes from the root with, which means to know. So they were basically texts which try to know whatever is happening. See, what would a child do? As I said, child would try to know everything that is happening around them. And they also try to know what is happening around them and codify them. Put them in the sutra form, in an aphoristic form, so that we can remember, I can transmit it to my next generation. So they created aphorisms, like we talk about rhymes for the kids, right? So similarly, they have created aphorisms which can be transmitted from generation to generation. And then these Vedas also have Veda Angas, which means the texts which would facilitate us to understand what these Vedas, how these Vedas are, can be understood. Okay, so that is where we have 6 Veda Angas. Okay, that's what I am referring to. Okay, and they were also attributed to the body parts. I am not getting into that. And we also have 4 Upavedas. Okay, sub Vedas. Look at these things, these are very important. And these again date back at least 500 BC, before that. Okay, Ayurveda, which is the traditional Indian medical system. Okay, Charaka and Shushruta are the doctors that are celebrated who have written works. Charaka has written a book called Charaka Samhita, and Shushrut is another author who has written a book called Shushruta Samhita, which talk about the biological system and which give, in fact, if you think that India somehow managed COVID-19 not being in a more disastrous way, the credit goes to these 2 traditional knowledge systems of health, because modern science has said we can't manage it, right? So until we got the vaccines, modern science was literally useless there. It is only trying to help in a help as a supportive system, but fundamentally these are the traditional knowledge systems that have really helped the country. And then we have Dhanurveda, which talks about archery. Dhanurveda is basically archery, and there is a book that is written before at least around 500 BC. And then we have Gandharva Veda, which is music, text of music. And we had Sthapatya Veda and Arthashastra. Sthapatya is architecture. Okay, it's a text on architecture which was written long back. And Arthashastra is economy, text of economy. So these are the texts which were written even before Christ. Okay, before 1st century or 2nd century BC. So these were this is the kind of literature that classical India has. Unfortunately, because of various reasons, most of the knowledge system is destroyed within the country. Even you find it elsewhere in many other countries where libraries were demolished and burned, right? See, the best way to kill a civilization is to demolish their library and burn their knowledge system. So that's what happened with India many times. And fortunately, some of the texts of India have gone to Tibet, and we had Tibetan translations of the original text, which were again translated into English and then brought back to India to transliterate into Sanskrit. So this is the kind of knowledge sharing that happened. With regard to this Vedic literature, something that is interesting for us to know is it was transmitted only on the oral medium since 2nd millennium BC through mnemonic techniques. Okay, even now Vedas are studied by using mnemonic techniques alone. Okay, of course they are written, but if there is a student who is trying to learn these Vedic texts, he has to go to the teacher and sit with the teacher and learn through the mnemonic practices. So that's how it was transmitted from, if you say it belongs to 2nd century, 2000 millennium BC, from then to now it was transmitted that way. What does it tell us? It tells that the power of the sound and power of the memory of the people, right? And let me narrate this story, okay? I said 15 minutes extra, so I can take 12 more minutes. There was a criticism against India that India doesn't have a history. Interesting, right? India doesn't have history because they don't know how to preserve their history, in the sense that they don't have dates and times that were, dates and places were not recorded at all. So, since dates were not there, they don't have a sense of history. That's how it is concluded. So, if you don't remember the dates, is it that you don't have history, sense of history? This concept is important in this context. Apaurusheya, authorless. Indian tradition strongly believes that knowledge is not authored. You don't author knowledge. Okay? But West may not accept it because West survives on authorship. Right? I am the author. If I say, no, I am not you are not the author, you would get hurt. But they believe that knowledge actually proceeds from you. You are only a vessel. Okay? It's not that you author knowledge, but knowledge gets transmitted by using you as a medium. So that is how the text, Vedic texts, which I said probably belong to at least 2000 years BC, were transmitted from generation to generation, believing that they are not authored by anyone. Okay, authorless texts. There is another important aspect as well that is to be known when we say that they are authorless, because nobody wants to establish that it is my own knowledge, because so many people contributed to my knowledge and I am only adding a bit of it, so I cannot claim that to be my knowledge. Right? Even now, you see, when we write a research article and publish it, it's not that it's my knowledge. I only probably would have added 10% to it, but it is the knowledge of so many other people who have contributed richly, which I am transmitting and then adding a few things to that. So that's how they have seen knowledge to be a community enterprise. Try to understand this. Knowledge is always a community enterprise. It's never an individual endeavor. It is always a community enterprise that contributes to your knowledge and gets transmitted. So, as I said, that's how Indian tradition was dismissed, saying that there is no historicity to Indian tradition. Then there was a very wonderful scholar that I found in India. I forgot his name. He is the chairman of Indian Institute of Advanced Study till last year. There was a conference, international conference, in which he was arguing. He was stating his point. He said, "See, what do you remember? Whatever you think is important to you, only that you remember, right? What would a community remember? Whatever it thinks is important for the community well-being, only that it remembers, right? So if somebody remembers numbers, somebody remembers knowledge. So can we say that I remember numbers, so that's why I'm greater than, or I have historicity than, which should be more valued, and somebody else remembers only knowledge, doesn't remember the dates, right? So that's the kind of distinction that we have to understand with regard to the historicity. And as I said, these are the 4 Vedas that we find in Vedic literature. This is, I don't know, I see many Indians as well here, so I'm asking this question innocently, so don't take me wrongly. Like, have you seen Vedas? Have you ever touched Vedas? Indians here? Online. That's an interesting answer. Yeah, online touch. Why is it that we now make an attempt to touch Vedas? If they are the sacred book, they are the ancient texts of your knowledge, why is it that, even I asked this in my philosophy classes in India, Delhi University where I teach, like students come to do PhD in Indian philosophy, and when I ask them, have you ever opened Veda? Why? Sir?
The presumption is that they are not related to modern world or they won't help us.
Wonderful. Yeah. They are outdated. They are of no use to me. Okay? So that's how we don't see them to be a part of knowledge, present knowledge. And the other one is, like, we consider them to be probably some religious text. I don't have to touch that because I don't understand what is happening in that. Right? These are the unfortunate wrong assumptions that we have. Actually, Vedas do talk about knowledge, and Vedas are divided into 4 parts. Each of the Vedas that I have mentioned, 4 Vedas that I have mentioned, Rig Veda, Yajurveda, Samaveda and Atharvaveda, each Veda is divided into 4 parts again, and one part is called Samhita, which is basically mantras. Mantras are hymns, and also they are basically benedictions. And we find Brahmanas, texts called Brahmanas, which are full of rituals, but it is not the whole story. We also have another part of Vedas which is called Aranyakas, which are commentaries on rituals and which also deal with knowledge. And we have Upanishads. Upanishads are basically the texts of knowledge. Okay? So now look at these 3. It has an action part and it has a knowledge part. Okay? Every Veda has an action part and every Veda has a knowledge part. It tells you what are the things that you should do and what are the things that you should not do. Okay? So the action part basically gives you prescriptions and also things that you should not do. Right? Do's and don'ts are what is discussed in action part, which comprises of Samhitas and Brahmanas. And come to this knowledge part. In the knowledge part you have Aranyakas. Aranyakas are said to be very interesting texts. These texts were written by people who have gone to the forest. Because in Indian tradition, human life is divided into 4 parts. Okay, these are called 4 ashramas, which is Brahmacharya, Gruhastha, Vanaprastha and Sannyasa. Brahmacharya is student life, Gruhastha is family life, and then Vanaprastha is living in seclusion, going to forest and living in seclusion. And then Sannyasa is relinquishing everything and living a life of complete detachment. Okay? So these are the 4 parts of human life is divided into these 4 parts. I will be talking about them later on, so in detail. But coming to this, people who go to forest and live there, they are the ones who have written these Aranyakas. Aranya basically means forest. And this is where I want to draw your attention to one important aspect. Even in your traditions and literatures, have a look at this. Somehow, forests have a stronger and higher symbolism of knowledge. I don't know why it is so. Forests are always considered to be repositories of knowledge, or places where you can actually get knowledge. Not the society. Okay? Society is only a playing ground. But knowledge is always derived from the forests. Okay? So this strongly we get in Indian tradition especially. I believe it could be true to even other traditions. So this is where Upanishads are the concluding portions of the Vedas, which have rich reservoir of knowledge. Okay, so from this part, often people believe that Indians are completely faith-ridden and they blindly believe things. Right? This is what is understood, no? At least presented. But the people who believe in this have rejected this And people, those who believed in this, have rejected this. There was a serious fight among the scholars at that point of time with regard to the importance of action and knowledge. And let me ask you this question. Do you think that all knowledge necessarily leads to human action? Think about it. You know that fire burns your hand, so you don't put your hand in that, right? But you know that if you tell a lie in a particular situation, everything would get destroyed. But even then, so does knowledge necessarily lead to successful action in everyday human life? Who addresses that? If we don't address it within our lives, then we are destroying ourselves and destroying the others' lives as well, right? So this was the debate then, like whether knowledge necessarily leads to successful human action or action itself is important than knowledge. So such kind of discourses happen there, which are important even within our lives now. So this is about Indian philosophical system that I am going to talk about. Like as I said, it is not that in total everything with regard to Vedas was accepted. Even during Vedic period, even when Vedas were being composed, people have rejected Vedas, rejected the authority of the Vedas. Okay, so there was a continuous dialogue, there was a continuous discussion, and there was continuous questioning of the truth of Vedas in our in ancient Indian tradition. So that's where we find this Nastika and Astika. This distinction is also very interesting. It is translated in English as theistic and atheistic. In the West, theism and atheism is based on belief in the God. But in India, the distinction between theism and atheism is not based on the belief in God. It is based on belief in the authority of the Vedas. If you believe that Vedas, I trust Vedas and I believe in Vedas, then you are called a theist. And if you don't believe in it, then you are called atheist. So following the Vedic pattern, we have these 6 philosophical systems that have evolved. One is, the first one that you find there is Sankhya. Sankhya basically in Sanskrit it means number, but actually it deals with a wonderful theory of, this is another interesting thing. Indian philosophy doesn't believe in creation. That's strange, right? It only believes in evolution. Okay, it's not that it is newly created. It only evolves and dissolves. There is only one thing that exists, or which evolves into multiplicity and dissolves into oneness again. Okay, so this is what we find in Indian tradition. That's how it doesn't completely believe in creationism. Rather, it believes in evolution and dissolution. Okay, so that's what this first philosophical system talks about. The second one, all of you are very familiar, right? Yoga. And morning also people. High Commission has celebrated International Yoga Day, and we have on 21st celebrating it again. So yoga is another philosophical system which is allied to Sankhya, but yoga that we understand now in the present contemporary world is a very reduced kind of one, okay, as a physical posture. But actually yoga is not just physical posture, and yoga is also not just limited to Patanjali Yoga. This yoga is written by a sage called Patanjali. Okay, but yoga is much broader than that. You find yoga's explanation in Bhagavad Gita and many other texts as well. So that's how yoga is much broader than what we now understand in a very reductionist way. Okay. Even Patanjali, this particular sage, this philosophical system, when it talks about yoga, it prescribes 8 steps, and among these 8 steps, physical postures is only one. Okay, so it says basically, if you have to enter into this room, you have to enter through the door, right? You cannot say that I would straight away drop in somewhere. So similarly, it says often, I think it is Swami Sarvapriyananda. I don't know if you heard this name. If you haven't heard this name, you should listen to this particular Swamiji from Ramakrishna order, who says, if you want to straight away go to meditation or straight away go to yogasanas, physical postures, he says, do you want Sakalanga yoga or Vikalanga yoga? Okay, do you want a kind of crippled yoga or do you want a proper yoga? Right, that's what he asks. But anyway, I'm not trying to take you into that controversy. But otherwise, this yoga, Patanjali Yoga Sutra that I'm talking about, actually talks about your body, your mind, and your spirit. How do you integrate all these three? Okay, so that's what it talks about. That's how I call it self-realization. Okay, you find a theory of self-realization here, and that's where one of my lectures I would be devoting to this as self-improvement. It's not just your body, it's your mind, and also the spirit that you should get connected to. I don't mean by spirit like, don't get me wrong, okay? I only mean the reality that exists around us. It could be nature, it could be air, right? It could be space, it could be time, anything that you can conceptualize. And then we have another philosophical system called Nyaya. Oh, sorry, I crossed my limit. Which talks about theory of knowledge. As I said, philosophy, core of philosophy is on what is knowledge and how do I get it? We don't ask this question, how do I get it? If I know what are the ways of getting knowledge, when I take care of my kids, I would actually take care of them in a more appropriate way and give them proper way of knowing things, right? So that's where even parents should know philosophy, especially so that their kids will be properly taught how to learn, right? And then Vaiseshika is another system that you find, which is theory of atomism. We think that atomic theory, okay, it's not only modern physics that talks about atomic theory. This is way back, long back, they spoke about atomic theory, okay? And then we have another school called Mimamsa, which is like a kind of reflection and argumentation and trying to know. And it is divided into two, Purva and Uttara. Purva is early and Uttara is later, okay? This is where I spoke about two aspects of Vedas. One is action and another one is knowledge. This school argues that it is action which is more important, it's not the knowledge. And the other school argues that it is the knowledge which is more important, it's not the action. Right? So that's how the debate on the Vedas, which some people unfortunately consider it to be a religious text, continued. They rejected Vedas. No? When you say, I don't accept first part of it, you are actually rejecting the text. That's what they have done very easily. And then rejecting the Vedic authority completely, or these three philosophical systems that we have, Charvaka, Buddhism and Jainism. All of us, at least some of you know about Jainism, right? Buddhism, most of the people know. Jainism is earlier than Buddhism. In fact, Gautam Buddha, who established this Buddhism, was a student of Mahavira Jain, who was 24th spiritual leader of the order of Jainism, right? So that's how Jainism existed even before Buddhism. And before that, we had something called Charvaka philosophy. This is very interesting. They are completely materialists. They argue that life is only for eat, drink, and be merry. That's all. And then they rejected Vedas during the time Vedas were evolving in a very strong way. Okay, so that's the kind of heterogeneity and argumentation that existed in the Indian tradition. So basically, in these four lectures that subsequent lectures that I'm going to give, I would be devoting myself to Buddhism, which talks about suffering. the concept of suffering is explored quite well, and also various ways of dealing with suffering were provided by Buddhism in a very established way. And I am also thinking that I would try to introduce some of the practical aspects of it so that we can get a benefit of the teachings of Buddha. And subsequent lecture would be devoted to yoga, where I would be talking about self-improvement. And subsequent lecture I would be devoting to Bhagavad Gita, which is not included here. Bhagavad Gita is one of the ancient philosophical texts of Indian tradition, which is a dialogue between a warrior by name Arjuna and God, Krishna, Lord Krishna. And this dialogue is very important for the human life, everyday human life, because it has a symbolic significance on human life. So that's what I would look at, which talks about, interestingly, how do I manage my inner world and how do I manage my external world? Internal world and external world. We don't even make this distinction, but actually we all have this internal world and external world, and incompatibility between them, which tries to destroy our peace of mind continuously, right? So that's what I would be addressing in my last but one lecture. And last lecture I have devoted to Vedanta, Advaita Vedanta, which is called non-dualistic conception of reality, which has rich resources on how do I know myself. The question that is asked is Koham, who am I? How do I know myself? What is self-knowledge? No? We use the word self in a very loose way. We don't root it strongly within ourselves. So that's where I would take it to. This is also important. Even Advaita Vedanta is affiliated to, and it also has its own meditative techniques. So I would also be trying to introduce some of the meditative techniques of these philosophical systems. So that's what I'm thinking of doing in these 5 lecture series that I have began today. I think I should stop here. I have taken more than what I am supposed to take. I'm sorry for that, because it's an introductory one, so I have to elaborate on certain kind of things. But I promise you that next lecture onwards I would not take so much time, and I will try to limit myself. But you are free to extend it. I have no power to extend it, but you always have the power of extending it anytime. Yeah. If there are any questions or anything that you would like to ask, feel free. We can probably devote 10 minutes or 15 minutes. 10 minutes at least, with the permission of the High Commissioner. Sir, can we continue for 10 more minutes if there are any questions? Yeah. Yeah, please.
You speak of, not believing in creation but evolution. So in the Hindu or Indian philosophical literature, is there an explanation of where humans started from? In the Judeo-Christian, it's created by starting with a family called Adam and Eve, and then from that evolved. But is there a point in which a human being was manifested or?
Yeah. Actually, when I say creationism, when I said evolution and dissolution, there are different philosophical systems